Coming up, the state of the Conservative Party. This week has provided more evidence that it's in a death spiral, and it's looking like a clear-cut case of annihilation come the next general election. And despite its leaders' travails over the question of the ceasefire in Gaza, the Labour Party, by contrast, is riding high on a wave of anybody but the Tories sentiment. And the Lib Dems are expected to benefit from this same sentiment when the blue wall seats in southern England are next contested. So, as well as losing every single one of the former red wall seats in the north of England, the Tories are staring down the barrel of an even bigger disaster, potentially seeing their blue wall crumble in the south. And with Sunak seemingly losing his grip on the party, failing to control the right-wing extremist Suella Braverman, who is still just about, at the time of recording this video, the Home Secretary, things only look set to get a lot worse for the nasty party. Stay tuned. I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button, subscribe, and above all, share a link to this video with your social media contacts. Remember this?
This government will have integrity, professionalism, and accountability at every level.
Integrity, professionalism and accountability were soon in freefall, as within hours of making that inaugural speech, Rishi Sunak reappointed the disgraced Suella Braverman to her former position of Home Secretary. A position from which she'd been fired just days previously by Prime Minister Liz Truss for breaches of the ministerial code involving leaking state secrets to unauthorised persons. A year later, and Braverman is as out of control under Sunak as she was under Truss, publishing her opinion piece in The Times this week that was not signed off by Sunak and indeed contradicted his government's policy. As a result, and as I record this, her tenure as Home Secretary seems to be coming to an end. In the Times article, Braverman talks about what she calls a hate march scheduled in London on Saturday the 11th of November and falsely accuses the Met Police of being biased in their policing of protests by taking a significantly softer approach towards left-wing groups than right-wing protests such as anti-lockdown demos and football hooliganism. Sir Mark Rowley, the Met Commissioner, has said quite simply that the threshold of serious disorder needed to ban an Armistice Day protest in London was not met, even under this government's own draconian public order laws. Despite what the tabloids were trying to suggest, the Peace March is not a Gaza march, and it doesn't go within 2 miles of the cenotaph. It is on Armistice Day, but even the organisers of the Armistice Day celebrations themselves called for the march to be allowed to go ahead, and the two events are hours apart in any case. British veterans of previous conflicts have also come out to support the march, which they feel is completely appropriate, given that the marchers on Armistice Day are actually calling for an armistice. But the irony of that seems lost on Sarah Vine and the other divisive, rabble-rousing voices in the Daily Mail. Sir Tom Windsor, former Chief Inspector of Constabulary, said of Braverman, "The operational independence of the police is not a debatable matter any longer. Applying pressure to the Commissioner of the Met in this way, I think that crosses the line." We'll soon see whether Sunak has the courage to sack Braverman. If he does, he'll trigger a rebellion by the right-wing extremist supporters within the parliamentary Tory party. If he doesn't, she'll continue to expose Sunak's weakness in failing to control her, and will probably trigger a rebellion by more moderate voices in the parliamentary party. Sunak is in a no-win situation. Some senior Tories have commented that Braverman is either extremely stupid or that she actually wants the dithering Sunak to fire her in order to further her future leadership prospects by burnishing her popularity with the Tory party membership rank and file, who lean very far to the right, even in comparison to Tory voters as a whole. The party is being torn apart. And this is all happening after the disastrous Truss premiership, whose economic impact continues to be reflected in higher mortgage and rent payments, and after years of bowing to a leader who was nothing short of a narcissistic, incompetent charlatan. Boris Johnson's tenure was a masterclass in how to demolish public trust. The Brexit disaster, the pathetically inadequate withdrawal agreement that was anything but Johnson's claimed oven-ready deal, Partygate, the diabolical COVID response, Sexual assault scandal after sexual assault scandal. The failure to give Johnson the boot for years when every sign pointed to his unfitness for office. All self-inflicted wounds that have left the Tory party reeling, steadily polling around 26% for the past year or more, and around 20 points behind Labour. The most optimistic take from a right-wing perspective is that Sunak and his Chancellor Jeremy Hunt have managed to stabilise their standing in the polls. But they're far from showing any indication whatsoever that they can kickstart the economy, or that they have any substantial ideas to fix a Britain that the Tory party itself has broken over the last 13 years. And as regular viewers will know, I don't like talking about Brexit much, but it's turned into the Tories' albatross, an anchor on the British economy, despite the falsehoods pumped out by Tufton Street pro-Brexit free market think tank, the Institute of Economic Affairs, this week. They attempted to downplay the economic downsides of leaving the EU, only to be quickly and predictably battered over those numbers by economists who pointed out that their shoddy research ignored, amongst many other things, inflation, which, if included, shows a 7.2% drop in exports and a 1.4% increase in imports, widening the UK's post-Brexit trade gap significantly. The rest of the IEA's agenda-driven research was equally shoddy. Just this week, Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey warned that Brexit has weakened UK trading opportunities. He acknowledged that the COVID pandemic and Russia's invasion of Ukraine have been factors, but insisted that, as a public official, I take no position on Brexit per se. That was a decision for the people of the UK. It has led to a reduction in the openness of the UK economy. Research by the non-partisan think tank UK and a Changing Europe found that just 9% of the UK electorate now saying leaving the EU had been a success. Yet Sunak is stuck playing peacemaker to the very same swivel-eyed Brexit cult on the right of his party that steered the ship onto the rocks in the first place, ensuring that the Tory party's time in power is grinding to an unceremonious halt. Brexit also sparked the phenomenon of small boats crossing the Channel, which were practically unheard of while the UK was party to the Dublin Convention, allowing asylum seekers to be returned to the first member country of entry before Brexit happened. The right-wing tabloids have stoked up the public's fear over the small boats crisis and immigration, and then the Tories have been adopting similar fascistic language on the subject, matched with their utter failure to make a dent in the issue. At the same time, that paints them as both heartless and incompetent. The Bank of England this week released gloomy economic forecasts indicating that the UK economy is stagnating and is forecast to see zero growth right through until 2025. The doomsday scenario for the Tories? With the economy staying in the doldrums, the Tories get trounced at the polls, and then, in a stunning display of not learning their lesson, they veer even further right, stuck in an echo chamber of their own and the right-wing tabloids' making. It's a party lost in its own ideological fantasy, deaf to the real-world chorus calling for change, and listening only to their own members who think that right-wing extremists such as Suella Braverman or Kimi Badenoch are the answer for success at the polling booth. Or even Nigel Farage. The former Brexit Party leader's popularity among the Conservative Party members has been confirmed by a poll for their in-house journal, Conservative Home, which shows the rank and file overwhelmingly backing his membership. Rishi Sunak himself has hinted that Farage would be welcomed with open arms. And Farage himself told the Politics Home website, "I'd be very surprised if I were not Conservative leader by 26. Very surprised. They think I'm joking," he added. "I'm serious." He later claimed his comments were meant in jest, but David Cameron's austerity chancellor, George Osborne, who is not one to jest, has touted Farage as a future Tory leader because of his popularity on the right of the party. Another Tory leadership contest is all but certain after the next general election. A shortlist of 2 candidates is selected by a ballot of whatever Tory MPs remain before a vote among party members. The editor of Conservative Home, Paul Goodman, said growing support among the party's base for Mr Farage was unmistakable, meaning if Farage were to become a Tory MP in the future, given the likely post-2024 parliamentary rump of hard-right Tory MPs, Farage could well become Tory leader at some point in the near future. And despite my loathing for the man, his politics and his carefully constructed political persona, I'm not so sure that I could state a strong case that he would be any worse than Suella Braverman or Kemi Badenoch. You think the Tories are in a state right now? I've a feeling that we ain't seen nothing yet. But what do you think? Leave a comment below and don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel.